Mother-Daughter-Duo-Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the Mother-Daughter Duo Podcast, where we talk about our own childhood traumas, generational curses, societal stigmas coming from a single mother's perspective. I am your host, Danielle Perkins, and to my right is my mother and co-host,
Jean Perkins.
This episode is sponsored by M5 Mommy Monday Morning Motivational Meetup. And for more information, please follow the banner down at the bottom. And it's a tongue twister, but M5 for short. During this segment, I want to get into parenting styles. But before we do, quick disclaimer, there's no hashtag SFT for today. And I think that's just, just single moms in general. Sometimes you have a momentum, you have a rhythm, you're moving forward, and then there's just a break in the week or a break in the day that will deter you slightly. And so that's just normal. Those are normal things. But I think in the next coming weeks, you'll see more shirts from us. My mom is working on her own individual project. Do you want to take a moment to shout out?
No.
No?
No.
Promote your stuff.
No, don't want nobody to give. Well,
it's
okay,
not going
this
to come
is
out
not
right away.
Right, okay, so I will promote my stuff. So at this point, I'm working on a shirt that will talk about women veterans.
Right.
For the first time, there is a national veteran. It's a federal holiday. Veterans Day is November the 11th across our nation. That's
this
where
was just
everyone
enacted, right?
No, November the 11th is something that has been established for a long time, and it recognizes veterans that have served in the military, and so that's always been there. But as of recent, I think in March, the latter part of March, a law had been in place, or they signed into law Women Veterans Day. And that will be June 12th of 2022, the first time ever. So June 12th, 2022, and not every state has signed this into law. Our state did happen to do that. And I know there's some other states that's going to be recognizing that. So I'm working on a T-shirt that says, "We served." So by the time this podcast airs, my shirt will have been out. So that is something that I am working on, have worked on.
We served as in the women.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you know exactly, you don't have a lot of information, but how can people get in touch with you? We'll have some information in the description, or
I have some information later. What I plan on doing is setting up an online store where you can purchase a T-shirt if you want one.
Mm-hmm. Same for myself. As I said, we're just going to do a lot of promotional T-shirts to empower women, specifically because this is a mother-daughter duo podcast, specifically single mothers. So a lot of the T-shirts that we wear will be around that. Additionally, we also want to include the mommy moment for the week. Do you have a mommy moment?
I don't.
You have to have one. That's law now.
I don't have.
I'll give you time to
a mommy
to think
moment.
about
and
it.
What does it include? The mommy moment?
Just like a highlight of your week from a mother's perspective, like getting your nails done. It was Mother's Day, you guys. Again, this is pre-recorded, but we had Mother's Day week.
Well, my mommy moment, I will say, is I gave more recognition to watching you be a mom. So that's my mommy moment. There are a lot of things that you do, and you probably made a determination that you would do a lot of things different than me. And so I just watch you being a parent, and I'm just real proud of you. So I think about that all the time. So that's my mommy moment. I take a lot of reflection in looking how you interact with your son and my grandson, and I take a lot of pride in, and I can't say that any of that came from me. I just say that you probably learned some things that you would not do from me, and I think you've done a great job. So that's my mommy moment.
I think yesterday you were like, "Oh my goodness." She even patted me on the bottom and did one of these things and said, "Oh my goodness, I'm just so proud of you." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like such a child." But
can't help it.
I know we're learning at this age to be more, I think life is so difficult that it definitely will make you very vulnerable and soft. So I think over the years, my mom has become super vulnerable because I can't say I remember a lot of that stuff when we were growing up. Not no shade, but I'm just saying.
No, you're right. There's a lot of things that I wish I could do differently when it came to raising you guys, but nobody gave me an instruction book. And so I feel like I did the best I could do with what I had. And that was, I didn't have instruction books, so I just did the best I could do.
So now it's just this outpouring of love sometimes. And sometimes for me now, it's just difficult to take it in. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm almost 40 and she's still pinching my cheeks and slapping me on the back.
For a mom, for me, you always be my kid. Especially when you live with your child.
Right.
It's just, I think it's totally different when they live together. I know that my request or my demands are wrong when I'm telling you to do something and you're almost 40. I shouldn't expect that you do. You have an opinion. You're grown. But in my mind, I can't help that. You still live with me. Maybe if you didn't live with me, it would
Agreed.
be different. And I know that I'm doing it. And I try not to, but can't help it.
Agreed. My mommy moment for this week, I would just have to say that my son turned 2. My son turned 2, and I think we're getting our weeks a little mixed up because my son turned 2 on April 30th, and Mother's Day was May 8th. So the last time that we recorded, my son has since turned 2 years old, but just the fact that there wasn't a lot of pressure, and mind you, again, my dad passed away the day after my son's first birthday, so I don't know that I was overly excited. I thank God that my son is here for another year. But just to know I don't have a lot of pressure with having to meet expectations and do this and jump through all kinds of hoops. And he was just happy to have a balloon. And he played with that balloon for a week straight.
He still got the balloon.
He still has the balloon.
Yeah.
And he wakes up just overly excited about this balloon. Like that's the first thing he remembers when he wakes up in the morning. So he'll go find the balloon. And just having, that be my mommy moment for the week was wonderful. Just seeing the excitement. We captured him on video dancing to Happy Birthday song. Like the fact that he understood this moment was about him. That was just really cool to see and experience. But getting into today's episode, parenting styles. I think it's great to understand parenting styles for a number of reasons. I think you said this in a few podcasts previously. When you know better, you do better. And I think with that being said, parenting is the most significant job that any of us that are parents will have in our lifetime. And when you go for a new job, one of the things that you do if you really want to score the job opportunity is you do your research about that job, the opportunity itself, what it entails, the responsibilities and roles that come with it. And I think that goes along with parenting. When you know that you're going to become a mom, you immerse yourself in all kinds of books, resources, and do your research. And I think it's great to understand parenting styles, partially because you want to, put your best foot forward and also understand a little bit about your experience previously from your parents and then what you can pass on to your children moving forward. So parenting styles, I would say that I thought, Mom, you were a helicopter mom at first. But once I started to look into it, I'm not so sure anymore. What would you say you were and what would you say you think I am as far as parenting style?
Well, I've heard the term helicopter parent. I think I probably was a little bit. I didn't let you guys do a lot. I was single, so I didn't have anybody to bounce ideas off of. I didn't have anybody to sit down and go over with me what might be a good thing to do with the children, what's not a good thing. I put my head down and I just charged forward, right? I just felt like, okay, I'm a single mom. And remember, I was in the Army.
Right.
So I had to be a military personnel. I was a part of their TO&E. They call it something about equipment, but I was a part of that. wasn't a person per se, even though I'm a physical person. So it's not like I could call in, tell them I couldn't be there because you guys were sick. That we just couldn't do that. I can call in my job now, but you guys are grown. And I'm retired military, so I can call into my civilian job and say, I can't be there. I got to do this with my kid. There was none of that. So I was the type of parent that I think I would do anything for my children, but at some point in time, I would check out mentally because I was just surviving.
I think that's the only reason why when I look into helicopter parent, I'm like, well, she couldn't do some of those things. So just to quickly go over the 12, I found this on, of course, another website. Let me go back. The website is positiveparentingally.com. And there's actually 12, which I'm sure there are a number. We always come up with these labels every year. So I'm sure that the list can continue to evolve and grow. It says the 5 most powerful parenting styles based on high-level philosophies. So there is positive parenting, attachment parenting, unconditional parenting, spiritual parenting, and slow parenting. The scientific approaches include authoritarian. No, there's authoritarian, and then there's authoritative parenting. There's two different ones. Permissive parenting and uninvolved parenting. And then there is unfortunate parenting approaches, narcissistic parenting, helicopter parenting, and toxic parenting. So we'll list the information. We're not going to go over each one of those for time's sake, but I'm looking for helicopter parenting. And did you notice how it was like one of the negative? Helicopter parenting was a negative take on it. Helicopter parenting includes the overprotective strategies of helicopter parents are driven by fears of losing, a basic fear of what all parents have, but which here is grown out of proportion, so to speak. Helicopter parents react on their own fear by taking a very protective role to their children, which consequently means an aggressive stance towards the world. Basically, they distrust their children's ability to take care of themselves, and they are afraid that if they don't keep a tight control with everything, harm will come to their children. Well, I do agree with some of that, but here's another better example in a different article. And I guess more as I'm trying to find it, or do you want to chime in on that? Mm-hmm. Because you were not able to be actively present because of the ties that you had, or the work ties, or even like you said, when you were home, you might have checked out because you were tired, overworked, overwhelmed, and you just needed that moment of solitude to yourself. I wish there was a way for me to directly get to it, but I can't.
Well, what do you remember about the article?
Here we go. Helicopter parenting is a term used to describe the overprotective attitude and constant involvement of parents. I guess the constant involvement part, you weren't necessarily able to do that. A helicopter parent hovers over their child, monitors and controls every aspect of their children's lives, and steps in whenever a problem arises. They tend to control the environment and activities that the child participates in, forcing them to conform to the parent's expectations while at the same time depriving them of a chance to learn things on their own.
So what do you think? Is that what I did or what?
To some degree.
Okay.
To some degree, I would say yes. And I think that a lot of Black moms do that, especially...
You think it's Black moms? It could not necessarily be Black moms.
Well, no, I do think a lot of Black moms do that. I think that you especially, who was born in the 60s, you come from an era where it's like, do as I say because I'm trying to protect you from a lot of things that you don't necessarily know about. Different times, and that comes from the parents before, back in the day where you just did not have a lot of ground, a lot of freedom in that era to do a lot of things, and so that's passed down. And I think that sometimes you don't even necessarily know why you're enforcing so many rules or being disciplined as you are, but I do feel like it comes from a place of love, but at the same time, if you notice, a lot of kids tend to, in their teenage years, which I think you would say about me, once they're able to come out of that kind of like shield or naivety, they kind of just rebel. I think you saw that, like you say that a lot. Like when I met a particular friend, I just turned into a whole new person, like in one day, 24 hours.
Bam. In case you see this.
So I don't think she even knew that you felt that way about her, but yeah. But what would you say I am?
You're not a helicopter mom, that's for sure.
I'm like...
You're like, whatever he experiences, if he hit his head, then that's on him. And I'm like, okay, he's not old enough to make those decisions right now, and you have to be able to stop him and prevent. I'm a helicopter grandma because I'm always anticipating what could potentially happen.
And none of the things that you ever say happen. There's like one thing you said, don't give him popcorn. I'll give you credit for that one thing.
I'm
he
just
choking on popcorn.
Right. But you still gave it to him. Didn't listen to me. There's a lot of things you don't listen to. You'd rather learn on your own. And especially with him, if you're learning on your own. With my grandson, I got a problem with that.
That's wild.
What could potentially
if you're learning
happen.
on your own with my grandson, as if he's not as important to me, if not more, than he is to you.
I mean,
go ahead.
we're discussing it now. I'm just telling you,
I said, but go ahead.
No, I said it already, that I've had the experience of what I'm trying to do, and I do that now. Even now, y'all are grown. I anticipate what could potentially happen, and that's how my mind works. I'm just participating what could potentially happen.
You anticipate the negative things that can potentially happen, except I see both sides of the spectrum, and I don't. It's true. I will let my child, I let the reins off of my child. If it's not causing any physical harm, I will, for the most part, let him figure it out. I'm in the house. We live in a very, very small apartment. There isn't a lot that I feel like he can do that's going to cause him grave danger or harm. Anything that can potentially cause grave danger is out of his reach. But as far as him it's just him, and he's a baby. So he can climb some tables for the most part. He can draw, on most things for the most part, because those things can be washed off. But it drives you bonkers. It's kind of funny to watch. I believe in preserving my energy, by the way. And I think a lot of moms do get themselves worked up and overly stressed because you're saying stop every 10 minutes. And the reality is they're not going to just stop because they're children and they're learning. So it just causes more harm than good. And I think it's kind of funny to watch. It is funny because of our different dynamics in the same household.
Very different.
But I'm like, if I need to, I can do CPR. If he's choking, I can do the what is it called?
Heimlich maneuver.
And we have the fire department 1 minute away from us. Like, that's how I think. Now, to some people that might be like, oh my gosh, girl, you're crazy. But I feel like the earlier we can start to give our child a little sense of freedom, the sooner they can start to be independent upon themselves, independent, and not have to rely so much on us by the time they're 5. Or not need us for everything.
I just did. I mean, totally different. I wouldn't think that way, but that's how you think, and I have to try to respect it.
It makes
I don't
you
like
crazy.
it, but I just have to respect it.
But what harm? You notice he's very intelligent because of it.
So let's talk about the pens and the markers. So I come home. Listen, she said we have a small place. So we do have a small place. I want something bigger, but at this point, I think I want something bigger so he can run around in. We're not so on top of each other. But I don't have the best things that I would like, right? And so then when I look at trying to maybe purchase something that reflects me, right?
I strongly discourage it.
You don't just discourage it. I discourage myself because I see how she's not paying attention to him when he have these pens. And I see how he done wrote on our laminated floors. Now, mind you, I've been at this old apartment for 10 years, going on 11. So the floor is still laminated. I have seen stuff that he used a pen and marked on my floor. That's not coming up. She has bought him markers that you can wipe, you can wipe off. He's used a pen to mark on the walls. That just comes from her not being a helicopter parent and allowing him to have pens. I take the pen from him. He does like to write, but she's like, she has a problem when I take the pen from him. Why I take the pen from him? Because he's marking on stuff.
Okay, but when you take the pen from him, true enough, everything you listed is true, but it's been wiped up except for the laminated floor. There's like a small section by the rug when you step into the living room. But instead of taking the pen away, maybe you can think of an alternative, like putting him in the booster seat where he could still play with the pen, but he's still confined. But you're just like, oh my gosh, which is so funny. Anyhow, parenting styles.
Yeah, they're different.
Very much so. And when you said earlier, like you think I'm trying to do completely opposite of you, I want to talk about what do you think influences the way that you parent really quickly. From my perspective, I think society has an way on how you influence, because if there's a lot of danger, like back in your day, you probably could sleep okay with the door being unlocked and just, the screen on the door. I know that when I stayed with my dad very early on in age, he felt very comfortable in his neighborhood to just have the door itself open and just the screen door as the barrier because it was a hot day. You can't do that now because people will burglarize your home, rob you. So I think society and what's going on in the climate has an influence on how you parent, how strict or how free you are with your parenting style. Personal experience, and by that I mean how I was raised, not necessarily and what the things that I had to go through. Me like knowing that what it felt like for me as a child to not feel like I had a lot of freedom, to make sure that I tried to instill that in my child. And then learning your child's personality. Sometimes my kid, no matter, like, you spanked him yesterday and he did the same thing, it didn't matter. So those things don't necessarily register with him right away. So are you going to spank him every single time? No, that gets exhausting. So you just kind of need to know and gauge your child and their personality. He's a Taurus boy. He's going to do what he does. Until he outgrows that and understands a little bit more, then I think you kind of just have to grow with your child. And then I think your lifestyle. Sometimes it was necessary for me to kind of like be a little less restrictive because I was stuck on the phone from 8 to 5. And sometimes he had to kind of like do his own thing. Although I could see him, I couldn't necessarily be there to restrict him or move him from each thing. He kind of just had full reign. So those are the things I think influence the way that you parent. What would you say influenced the way that you parented at the time?
I just got my influence just came from how I was raised. And my mother was my grandparents started out raising me from the age of 6 weeks old until I was 10, or I'll go back and I'll say 9. I had my 10th, or maybe till I was 10. My grandparents raised me. And then when my grandfather died, I went to go stay with my mother. So I believe I had my 11th birthday in Chicago, Illinois. At any rate, I went from my grandparents' house where he was strict, but they were kind of strict. We're talking about the 60s.
Exactly.
And so we're talking about my grandfather. I grew up in the country. We had ducks in our backyard.
Like, one of your fondest memories you talk about all the time is just seeing your granddad drink coffee. So I feel like that is where a lot of your influence comes from. Just like,
yeah, my grandfather was a very big influence. But he didn't do a lot of whipping and spanking. But when he did, it was well deserved. I think the strong hand. He was a very good, disciplinarian. but my mother, when I went to go stay with her, you talk about a different dynamic altogether. And yeah, it was just kind of different. And she was very authoritative. My mother was. And so I didn't have, and then, then I was with her for a period of time and then graduated high school. And then from high school went away to college. And then from college, I went in the military. So
even then you didn't rebel a lot. Like you didn't do, the most things that you did were like so trivial. I mean, so
no,
small.
I didn't rebel a lot. Jackie had big hands. My mama did not play.
So even as an adult, you kind of, as a youth, I was like, at 16, I went away to Job Corps. So I felt like from there it was like, whatever I do, it's just whatever I do. But even at that age, you still thought about your mom. Like even as an adult, you still were like, I respect my mom this much to where I won't do anything to compromise. Because you said Jackie had a hand. Like you still felt Jackie's presence at 18 when you were in college.
No. I mean, my mother was just, I respect the way that my mother raised me. And she was very authoritative. Yeah, did I do some things? I'm sure. I know that I did. I can think about things like coming in late past my curfew. I did that. Stole the car one time.
Oh, see? You
Yeah.
act like you never did
It was my car, but I stole it. Yeah. And she never said anything if she
I wish
knew.
somebody would have told me I was stealing my own car.
Yeah, I was stealing my own car. It was my car. Yeah. Well, I didn't have a license.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, me and my friends went for a joyride in my car at about 12 o'clock midnight or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
From what I can remember.
To me, those things are just so simple, but
but my mom was
different.
But she was authoritative. But I didn't have, and I still will say, I just didn't have the right kind of book. I see the difference now. I didn't think about that. Like I said, I was just wrapped up into my own world when I was raising you and your brother. I had no help. I was here by myself, and so there are things now that I probably would do different as I looked at those questions that I was trying to answer. Sometimes I think when I was answering those questions, I said Danielle would have wanted me to answer a question like this, or maybe this is how I should be able to answer the question. But the reality is that's just not how my mindset was.
Right. What are the projected outcomes What are the projected outcomes for how you parent, or what are the projected outcomes you wish? I don't think I completed this. Based on parenting styles, what are the projected outcomes you hope for your child, regardless of how you parent? So for me, I said I just wanted them to be overall grounded, well-rounded, and resourceful. Everything else, I think within those things you can pick up on yourself. If you're a grounded individual, means that you're disciplined and rooted in something, some type of spirituality. If you're well-rounded, means you're diverse. And if you're resourceful, you don't have to be the most brilliant, the smartest, but you know where to get the information and you know who to connect with. And I think everything else will come and fall in place. What were your projected expectations or projected goals?
I think they are what they are right now. I just wanted to, even though we went round the mulberry bush to get there, as I see you and your brother take on life on your own, because you struck out before on your own, you lived in Vegas on your own, your brother is on his own now, and even though when I know he might need help, he just refuses to want any assistance. So I think my outcome was just to make sure that my children were good. I wanted my son to be a good man of God. I wanted my daughter to be a wonderful woman of God. I just wanted those spiritual, and I think you guys have them for yourself. And I wanted you to be able to just know that you can make it out here in the world, that you would find your lane and be able to find a way to just, make it in whatever career field you've chosen and however you want to move about in life. Now, you are different. And you got whatever you want to do. But I know that you're resourceful. I think you're very smart. I think you're too intelligent. For your own good sometimes. Because you don't listen to reason.
Okay, we're wrapping it up. Remember?
Yeah, but anyway. But what my outcomes now are, what I expected then is what I see now, which you and your brother are out there in the world and you're making your way.
Okay. And then we didn't do this at the start, but the Mother May I portion where we have a question from a Facebook group, and I pose it to you, and then I chime in as well. So, Mother May I?
Yes, you may.
Okay. What's everyone's opinion on adult siblings not getting along? So this was very specific to like family gatherings, but the reason why I asked this question is because me and Bruce fight like Crips and Bloods, cats and dogs, like literally fight. And I think it maybe just stopped maybe around late 20s, early 30s. Now it's just more of like a wrestle because I miss you. But how would you advise this woman who says that she has adult siblings who don't get along?
I didn't have any advice for y'all, so I really can't have no advice for her because I didn't like going nowhere with y'all because y'all couldn't stop. And
In
to be
public.
honest,
In public.
you were always the aggressor, and you should know that. You always started it. You just couldn't help yourself, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it was your way of showing him love. I don't know, but I can't answer her question. I just did a lot of prayer.
So pray about it, sis. I can't chime in because time doesn't permit, but pray about it. And just know that, like in our situation, I said we were fighting up until the point of our late 20s, early 30s, that at some point it will cease.
And maybe have conversations individually with why you don't get along with your sister. Why are you not getting along with your brother? Or if it's two brothers, or if it's two sisters. Ask them individually why, and then let them know the importance of them getting along, because you're not going to always be here. And that was something I did used to say. I worried about my children because I want to make sure they have a solid relationship. Whenever I leave this earth, I wanted to make sure their relationship was solid and they could depend on one another. So, yeah. Maybe have conversation with them individually to ask them what are the reasons why they do not get along and see how you can facilitate reconciliation or maybe some understanding between the two.
All right. Well, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Mother Daughter Duo podcast. Again, my name is Danielle and my mother, Jean. And take care. God bless.
God bless.
Mother Daughter Duo Podcast.